What if I told you that the myths and monuments of ancient civilizations, ones you've probably only seen in textbooks or documentaries, weren't just relics of the past, but encoded messages for our survival? Hidden in plain sight, these warnings have transcended time, waiting for us to decipher their meaning. Humanity has always sought to leave its mark on the world. But for ancient civilizations, it wasn't just about legacy, it was about survival. From the colossal pyramids of Egypt to the intricate stone carvings of the Mayans, their creations held a purpose that extended beyond art or religion. They were messages left like cosmic breadcrumbs hinting at an event so profound it united cultures that had never met. Consider this. The Egyptian story of Ra battling chaos isn't just a tale. It's a metaphor for cosmic balance, an ongoing struggle between order and destruction. The nightly battle, they believed, reflected not just the journey of the sun, but humanity's fragile existence on Earth. Thousands of miles away, the Mayans were carving similar ideas into stone. Their long count calendar, often misrepresented as predicting the apocalypse, actually marked cycles of destruction and rebirth. It wasn't the end of time, it was a call to prepare for upheaval. And yet, these were only two of countless civilizations that seemed to echo the same message. The Norse told of Ragnarok, a great battle that would end the world, followed by renewal. In Hinduism, the concept of yugas divides time into cycles, with each progressively deteriorating until the world is destroyed and reborn. Even the Hopi Native Americans have prophecies foretelling of great purification, a moment of reckoning followed by renewal. It seems too coincidental to dismiss, doesn't it? Across oceans and continents, ancient peoples who never shared a single word with one another arrived at eerily similar conclusions. The world is not as permanent as it seems. But what could have driven them to this shared belief? Let's explore their skies. The ancients were avid watchers of the stars. They mapped celestial movements with an accuracy that baffles modern scientists, using tools no more sophisticated than stone and intuition. For them, the heavens were a clock, each celestial event a potential harbinger. In Mesopotamia, priests interpreted eclipses as omens. The Chinese recorded guest stars, or supernovae, which they believed foretold change. And, across Central and South America, comets were seen as celestial messengers of doom. One theory suggests these cultures may have experienced the same astronomical phenomena: a passing comet, a significant solar storm, or an asteroid impact. Any one of these could have had catastrophic consequences, searing the memory into their myths. Consider the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis, which posits that a comet struck Earth around 12,800 years ago, causing sudden climate change and massive extinctions. Could events like this have sparked humanity's collective cautionary tales? But there's more. These warnings weren't just verbal. They were carved into stone and coded into architecture and whispered through rituals. The Great Pyramid of Giza, for example, aligns with cardinal points and celestial bodies so precisely that some researchers argue it was a tool for monitoring the stars. Similarly, Stonehenge isn't merely a circle of rocks. It's an astronomical calendar. These constructions suggest a deliberate attempt to link human activity with cosmic cycles. And yet it wasn't just about what they saw in the sky. It was about how it shaped their lives. On Earth, flood myths are among the most ubiquitous across cultures. The story of Noah's Ark parallels Mesopotamia's Epic of Gilgamesh, India's tale of Manu, and countless indigenous legends. Scientists now believe these stories might have been inspired by real events, massive floods caused by glacial melt or rising seas. The idea is simple. These ancient people faced forces they couldn't control: volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, plagues, phenomena that seemed divine, even inescapable. Their response? To encode their experiences in ways that future generations could understand. But the message wasn't just one of fear. it was one of preparation. Take the story of Nebuchadnezzar II, the Babylonian king who dreamt of a massive statue, destroyed by a stone. His vision, often interpreted as a prophecy of the fall of empires, speaks to a universal truth. Nothing lasts forever. This wasn't just a warning for his kingdom. It was a metaphor for human fragility. So how does this tie to us? Modern science has begun to validate what these ancient warnings hinted at. Astrophysicists confirm the likelihood of catastrophic asteroid impacts. Climate scientists warn of rising seas and shifting ecosystems, echoing the ancient flood myths. And our reliance on technology has revealed a new vulnerability, a significant solar storm like the Carrington event of 1859 could cripple our infrastructure in an instant. The ancients may not have had our science, but they had wisdom, a kind of observational understanding of the natural world. They knew the balance was delicate, and so they built their warnings into the only things they believed would stand the test of time: stone, stories, and stars. But here's where it gets fascinating. While we've uncovered some of these messages, many remain hidden, buried under sand, concealed in jungles, or misunderstood in plain sight. What secrets might we uncover if we look closer? And what could they reveal about the dangers we still face today? If ancient monuments were built to last for millennia, why did their creators go to such extraordinary lengths to embed cryptic warnings into stone, geometry, and the heavens? Were they driven by survival, divine inspiration, or something even more mysterious? It's often said that necessity is the mother of invention, and in the case of ancient civilizations, their monumental creations were born from an urgent need to preserve knowledge. But what if the real story goes deeper? What if their efforts weren't just about safeguarding information for their time, but for ours? The construction of these timeless structures wasn't accidental. Every stone placed, every angle calculated, every carving etched served a purpose. The Great Pyramid of Giza, for example, is a masterpiece of precision engineering. It aligns almost perfectly with true north, a feat that would have been nearly impossible without advanced knowledge of astronomy. Even more puzzling is its mathematical consistency. Ratios within the pyramid encode values like pi and the golden ratio, concepts we credit to much later civilizations. But this isn't just about Egypt. Across the globe, the same deliberate craftsmanship appears. Consider Machu Picchu in Peru, perched high in the Andes. Its terraces are not only an architectural marvel, but also a functional design to prevent landslides and ensure agricultural sustainability. The alignment of its key structures with celestial events suggests the Incas weren't just looking outward. They were connecting their lives with the cosmic order. What ties these cultures together is their apparent obsession with time, specifically cycles of time. The Mayans famously charted these cycles in their long count calendar, which spans thousands of years and predicts the end of one era and the beginning of another. Their understanding of celestial mechanics rivals even modern-day expertise, as their records accurately predicted solar and lunar eclipses centuries into the future. In Mesopotamia, the birthplace of writing, the Sumerians chronicled similar patterns. They observed the movements of the planets and associated them with gods, attributing events on Earth to celestial influences. Tablets discovered in Babylon, dating back over 3,000 years, detail the path of Venus with astonishing precision. To them, the heavens weren't just a backdrop. They were a clock, ticking towards something inevitable. But why this fixation? The answer lies in what these cultures feared most: the unpredictable wrath of nature. Ancient peoples experienced events so catastrophic they believed only divine intervention could explain them. Volcanic eruptions turned skies dark, earthquakes shattered cities, and floods swallowed entire regions. The eruption of Thera around 1600 BCE, for instance, devastated the Minoan civilization and may have inspired the myth of Atlantis. These disasters left scars, not just on the land, but on the collective psyche of humanity. They were interpreted as warnings, as cosmic messages that balance had been disrupted. And so, ancient architects turned their energy toward creating structures that would endure, carrying their stories and wisdom forward, perhaps to prepare future generations for similar catastrophes. One particularly intriguing example is Göbekli Tepe in modern-day Turkey. Dated to 11,000 years ago, it predates Stonehenge and the pyramids by millennia. Its massive stone pillars are adorned with intricate carvings of animals, many of which seem symbolic rather than literal. Researchers believe Göbekli Tepe may have been an early warning system, a place where early humans gathered to observe the stars and share knowledge about cycles of life and death. What's striking is that these early builders often encoded their messages in symbols and alignments rather than words. Why? Some scholars suggest it was intentional. A recognition that languages evolve and disappear, but mathematics, astronomy, and visual symbols are universal. The placement of stars in the night sky, after all, hasn't changed much over thousands of years. A map of the heavens would outlast even the mightiest empires. Even more curious are the similarities in how these warnings were conveyed. Across cultures, we see recurring symbols: serpents, spirals, and circles. The serpent, for example, appears in Aztec mythology as Quetzalcoatl, a god who represents cycles of death and rebirth. In ancient Egypt, the Ouroboros, a serpent eating its tail, symbolized eternity and the cyclical nature of existence. These weren't just decorative motifs. They were deliberate choices meant to convey profound truths about the universe. But perhaps the most powerful element of these monuments is their permanence. Built from materials like limestone, basalt, and granite, they were designed to withstand the test of time. They were placed strategically, often in locations with geophysical significance, ensuring their visibility for centuries. Consider the Nazca lines in Peru, giant geoglyphs, etched into the desert floor. Visible only from the sky, they serve no obvious practical purpose, leading some to believe they were meant to communicate with the gods or with future generations capable of flight. If this is true, the ancients didn't just leave warnings. They left puzzles designed to be solved when humanity was ready. The Great Sphinx, for instance, may hold untapped secrets. Some researchers speculate there are hidden chambers beneath its paws, potentially containing knowledge lost to time. Others point to the Antikythera mechanism, a complex artifact discovered in an ancient Greek shipwreck, as evidence of advanced knowledge that was forgotten and rediscovered millennia later. The sheer scale of these projects is another clue. The labor, resources, and time required to construct them would have been monumental. Why would civilizations invest so much effort in something with no immediate benefit? The answer might lie in their understanding of time. Unlike modern societies, which often focus on short-term gains, these cultures thought in centuries and millennia. Their warnings weren't for the next year, or even the next generation. They were for us. The question remains, why would so many civilizations, separated by geography and time, converge on the same methods and messages? Did they share a deeper understanding of the cosmos, or were they responding to the same external threat? As we continue, we'll examine how these warnings connect to modern science and what they might still be trying to tell us. What if the answer to humanity's shared warnings lies not on Earth, but in the heavens? Above, ancient civilizations gazed at the stars, mapping their movements with obsessive precision. But why? Could the celestial patterns they observe have been the trigger for their dire messages? Look to the night sky, and you'll see the same stars that guided the ancients. To them, the heavens were not just a tapestry of light, but a cosmic code, a language written in constellations, comets, and eclipses. The study of these celestial phenomena wasn't mere curiosity, it was survival. These events dictated the rise and fall of empires, the rhythms of agriculture, and, perhaps most ominously, the approach of cataclysmic events. Let's start with something as simple as the changing seasons. Ancient cultures understood these cycles by observing the stars. The Egyptians relied on the heliacal rising of Sirius, which coincided with the annual flooding of the Nile, their lifeblood. But to them, it wasn't just a practical signal. It was a divine act, a renewal of life orchestrated by the gods. Similarly, the Mayans charted the sun's journey with remarkable accuracy, aligning their temples to mark solstices and equinoxes. These weren't just rituals, they were warnings, reminders that humanity's existence was tethered to the celestial dance. The skies also brought terror. Comets, for example, were universally seen as omens. The Chinese called them broom stars, believing they swept away the old to make way for the new. In medieval Europe, Halley's Comet was feared as a harbinger of disaster. But even in ancient times, these fiery visitors were more than just celestial spectacles. They were messengers of upheaval. Modern science suggests that the sudden appearance of a comet could have sparked real-world consequences, from atmospheric disturbances to meteor impacts. One particularly compelling theory involves the Taurid meteor stream, which Earth passes through twice a year. Some researchers believe ancient civilizations may have witnessed devastating meteor showers from this stream, searing the memory into their myths. The Younger Dryas impact hypothesis, for instance, posits that fragments from this meteor stream struck Earth around 12,800 years ago, triggering a sudden cooling period and mass extinctions. If this event occurred, it would explain why so many ancient cultures place such importance on watching the skies. The ancients also feared solar eclipses. To them, the sudden blotting out of the sun wasn't a predictable astronomical event. It was a moment of cosmic imbalance, a reminder of the fragility of life. The Babylonians were among the first to predict eclipses, using a method called the Saros cycle, which tracks the repetition of lunar and solar eclipses. This knowledge wasn't just scientific, it was sacred. They believed eclipses foretold the death of kings, prompting rulers to perform elaborate rituals to ward off disaster. But it wasn't just eclipses that held their attention. The ancients had a deep fascination with the wandering stars, the planets. Venus, in particular, was revered for its predictable cycles. The Mayans tracked Venus with such precision that their calculations deviate from modern astronomical data by only a fraction. They believed Venus was a warrior, and its appearance in the sky often signaled the timing of battles. But could there be a deeper reason for this focus? Modern astronomers suggest that Venus's brightness and sudden visibility during its phases might have symbolized a disruption in the natural order, reinforcing its association with change and upheaval. Across the globe, the Pleiades star cluster held special significance. Known as the Seven Sisters, this cluster appears in the myths of countless cultures. The Navajo linked the Pleiades to their agricultural calendar, while the Greeks wove it into tales of pursuit and escape. In Japan, the Pleiades inspired the name Subaru, symbolizing unity and harmony. Why such universal fascination? Some researchers believe it's because the cluster's heliacal rising coincided with key seasonal changes, embedding it into the rhythms of life. Yet, it's not just the stars themselves that intrigue. It's how they align with earthly structures. The Great Pyramid of Giza, as we've discussed, aligns with celestial points with astonishing precision. In Cambodia, the temples of Angkor what reflect the movement of the constellation Draco. The ancient city of Teotihuacan in Mexico mirrors the alignment of Orion's belt. These aren't random coincidences. They're deliberate, suggesting that the ancients sought to anchor their lives, and perhaps their warnings, to the cosmos. But the question remains, why did they go to such lengths? One answer lies in the concept of celestial cycles. Ancient astronomers recognized that the positions of stars and planets repeat over long periods, patterns we now understand as precession, the slow wobble of Earth's axis. This cycle, lasting roughly 26,000 years, was known to the Mayans and Hindus, who incorporated it into their calendars. They understood that these cycles brought both stability and change, creating a cosmic rhythm that dictated the fate of civilizations. Consider the Great Year, a term describing the full precessional cycle. To the ancients, the Great Year marked epochs of creation and destruction, renewal and decay. The idea appears in Hinduism's yugas, Plato's world cycles, and even the Hopi prophecies of purification. If these cultures all recognize the same cycle, could their warnings be pointing to a specific moment within it? Modern science is beginning to catch up. Astronomers have discovered that Earth's axial tilt and orbit influence long-term climate patterns known as Milankovitch cycles. These cycles, which include precession, have triggered ice ages and warm periods throughout history. Could it be that the ancients, in their own way, were aware of these patterns and sought to warn us of their consequences? And then there's the mystery of alignment with catastrophic events. Some researchers believe that ancient texts and monuments hint at periods of increased solar activity, asteroid impacts, or even shifts in Earth's magnetic field. While these theories remain speculative, they highlight the ancients' keen awareness of the interconnectedness of the cosmos and life on Earth. If the stars guided ancient civilizations, what else might they have revealed? As we move forward, we'll explore how modern science is unearthing connections between these celestial patterns and real-world threats, ones that might be closer than we think. What if the warnings embedded in ancient myths and monuments were more than symbolic? As modern science advances, it's uncovering startling connections between ancient prophecies and real-world phenomena. Could their fears have been based on truths we're only beginning to understand? In the modern era, science has become the new language of explanation. Yet, as researchers delve deeper into the mysteries of the cosmos and the Earth itself, they find echoes of ancient warnings once dismissed as myth. This convergence of ancient insight and modern discovery is revealing that the ancients might have understood more about our world than we ever imagined. Take, for instance, the Younger Dryas period, a sudden catastrophic cooling event that occurred approximately 12,800 years ago. For decades, scientists debated its cause. Then, in recent years, a groundbreaking theory emerged. The Earth may have collided with fragments from a disintegrating comet, triggering global wildfires, massive floods, and drastic climate shifts. If true, this event would explain many flood myths, from the biblical story of Noah to the Mesopotamian tale of Utnapishtim. These weren't just allegories, they were collective memories of a devastating event. Modern geology adds weight to this theory. In Greenland, scientists have uncovered layers of platinum-rich sediment, a marker of cosmic impacts. Across North America, black mats of carbon-rich soil suggest massive fires coincided with the onset of the Younger Dryas. Even ancient cave art, such as that in Lascaux, France, has been interpreted as depictions of celestial events, possibly the passage of a comet or meteor shower that heralded the disaster. But it's not just comets. The sun, too, has played a central role in both ancient prophecies. In modern science, solar flares and coronal mass ejections, CMEs, are bursts of charged particles that, if directed at Earth, could wreak havoc on our technology-dependent society. The Carrington event of 1859, a massive solar storm, caused auroras so bright they could be seen in the tropics and disrupted telegraph systems worldwide. If a similar event were to occur today, it could disable power grids, satellites, and communication networks, plunging us into chaos. Could the ancients have observed signs of such solar phenomena? The Maya, who meticulously charted the sun's movements, associated periods of solar maximum with societal upheaval. Similarly, Hindu texts describe cosmic cycles tied to the sun's influence, predicting periods of renewal following great destruction. While their explanations were couched in mythological terms, the underlying observations may have been rooted in real, repeatable phenomena. Modern science has also revisited the concept of magnetic pole reversals, events where Earth's magnetic field flips, weakening in the process. While pole reversals are natural and have occurred throughout Earth's history, they're accompanied by increased exposure to cosmic radiation and disruptions to ecosystems. Interestingly, ancient Chinese texts describe stars falling from the sky and periods of darkness, which some researchers speculate could be early accounts of geomagnetic disturbances. Today, as scientists monitor the weakening of Earth's magnetic field in the South Atlantic anomaly, questions arise. Are we due for another reversal? And if so, how prepared are we for its consequences? Then there's the matter of rising seas. The idea of a deluge isn't just an ancient trope, it's a looming modern reality. As glaciers melt and ocean levels rise, scientists predict that coastal regions could face catastrophic flooding in the coming centuries. What's striking is how closely this aligns with the pervasive flood myths of antiquity. Could these stories have been early warnings, encoded by cultures that had already witnessed the wrath of the seas? Consider the Doggerland, a now submerged landmass that once connected Britain to mainland Europe. Around 8,000 years ago, a massive tsunami, triggered by the Storega, slide off the coast of Norway, submerged Doggerland, displacing its inhabitants. For those who survived, the flood would have seemed apocalyptic. Could events like this have inspired the stories passed down through generations? The parallels don't stop there. In recent years, researchers have begun studying the Great Dying, a mass extinction event 252 million years ago that wiped out 90% of life on Earth. Evidence suggests it was caused by massive volcanic eruptions in Siberia, which released vast amounts of greenhouse gases, triggering runaway climate change. This echoes the fiery cataclysms described in texts like the Mahabharata, where the world is consumed in flames before being reborn. As we connect the dots between ancient accounts and modern science, one thing becomes clear. Humanity has always been vulnerable to forces beyond its control. Yet, while the ancients interpreted these forces as divine retribution or cosmic balance, we now have the tools to understand and potentially mitigate them. Astrophysicists are tracking near-Earth objects, NEOs, to prevent catastrophic impacts. Climate scientists are developing models to predict and adapt to rising seas. Geophysicists are monitoring the magnetic field for signs of instability. And yet, the more we learn, the more fragile our existence seems. This brings us to an uncomfortable truth. While we may possess advanced technology and scientific understanding, our modern society is in many ways more vulnerable than ancient civilizations. A single CME could disable power grids worldwide. A major volcanic eruption could disrupt global agriculture, leading to famine. Rising seas could displace millions. The scenarios our ancestors warned us about are not only plausible, they are imminent. But the most unsettling realization is this. While ancient warnings often spoke of renewal following destruction, our modern world seems unprepared for the aftermath. What lessons can we learn from those who came before us? As we move forward, we'll explore how ancient wisdom might hold the key to navigating the challenges of today and tomorrow. In their warnings of destruction, the ancients didn't just leave tales of catastrophe, they left a blueprint for resilience. What if the secrets to surviving the challenges of our modern world have been hidden in plain sight, waiting for us to rediscover them? The ancients were not passive observers of their world. When confronted with forces beyond their control, floods, fires, plagues, they adapted, innovated, and encoded their hard-earned wisdom in ways designed to endure. Their stories, monuments, and rituals were not only warnings, but lessons on how to live in harmony with a volatile planet. These lessons, often overlooked, might be the key to navigating the existential threats we face today. Let's start with agriculture, the foundation of civilization. Ancient societies understood that survival depended on balancing human needs with the rhythms of nature. The Inca Empire, for instance, thrived in one of the most challenging environments on Earth, the Andes Mountains. To combat the region's steep terrain and unpredictable weather, they developed a system of terraces that prevented soil erosion and maximized arable land. These terraces weren't just engineering marvels, they were expressions of ecological wisdom. By working with the land rather than against it, the Incas ensured food security for generations. The lesson here is clear. Sustainability is not a modern invention. It's a rediscovery of principles that ancient civilizations understood intuitively. Yet, in our pursuit of progress, we've often ignored these principles, depleting resources and destabilizing ecosystems. The consequences are stark. Desertification, deforestation, and dwindling biodiversity, all of which the ancients likely recognized as precursors to collapse. Another profound insight lies in the concept of cyclical time. While modern societies view time as linear, ancient cultures saw it as a series of repeating cycles. This perspective wasn't just philosophical, it shaped their approach to life. The Hindus' yugas, the Mayans' backtons, and the Egyptians' concept of Ma'at, cosmic balance, all emphasized renewal following destruction. To them, endings weren't failures. They were opportunities to rebuild stronger and wiser. Consider the ancient city of Catalhoyuk, one of the earliest urban settlements, dating back over 9,000 years. Archaeological evidence suggests that its inhabitants periodically rebuilt their homes on top of older structures, layering their city like a geological record. Each reconstruction incorporated improvements, reflecting lessons learned from the past. This practice wasn't merely pragmatic, it was a testament to resilience. The people of Catalhoyuk understood that progress isn't about avoiding failure, it's about adapting to it. Resilience also meant fostering strong social cohesion. Ancient societies recognized that survival required collective effort. In Polynesian cultures, for example, the practice of tapu, sacred restrictions, regulated the use of natural resources. These restrictions, enforced by community leaders, ensured that fishing grounds and forests weren't overexploited. While tapu may seem like a relic of superstition, it was in essence an early form of environmental management, one that relied on shared values and mutual accountability. In contrast, modern societies often prioritize individualism over community. This shift has left us ill-equipped to address collective challenges like climate change, which require global cooperation. The ancients understood that no individual could weather a storm alone, an idea we would do well to embrace. Their approach to technology also holds valuable lessons. While ancient innovations were often remarkable, they were deeply integrated with their environment. The aqueducts of Rome, the qanats of Persia, and the stepwells of India all demonstrate a profound understanding of water management. These systems were designed not only to supply water, but to do so sustainably, respecting the natural flow of rivers and groundwater. Compare this to modern infrastructure, which often prioritizes efficiency over ecological harmony. Dams and reservoirs, while providing short-term benefits, have disrupted ecosystems, displaced communities, and in some cases exacerbated water shortages. The ancients remind us that true innovation doesn't conquer nature, it collaborates with it. Perhaps the most poignant lesson lies in their ability to remember. Ancient societies didn't just experience disasters, they institutionalized their memories of them. Flood myths, for instance, weren't just stories, they were warnings encoded in narrative form. The story of Noah's Ark, the Mesopotamian tale of Utnapishtim, and the Hindu account of Manu describe divine beings instructing humanity to prepare for a great deluge. These stories served as cultural anchors, ensuring that the lessons of the past weren't forgotten. Contrast this with modern attitudes. Despite unprecedented access to information, we often fail to learn from history. We rebuild in floodplains after hurricanes, ignore warnings from climate scientists, and treat disasters as anomalies rather than inevitable consequences of systemic issues. The ancients would likely see this as a dangerous form of collective amnesia, but perhaps their greatest wisdom was their humility. Ancient cultures, despite their advancements, understood their place in the larger order of things. The Egyptians called it Ma'at, a principle of balance and harmony that governed not just human affairs, but the cosmos itself. To disrupt Ma'at was to invite chaos. This reverence for balance is a stark contrast to modern hubris, which often assumes that technology can solve any problem and that nature can be tamed. Reclaiming this humility doesn't mean rejecting progress. It means recognizing its limits. It means understanding that we are part of a larger system, one that requires care, respect, and stewardship. The ancients remind us that survival isn't just about ingenuity, it's about wisdom. As we stand at the crossroads of unprecedented challenges, the question becomes, can we adapt quickly enough to avoid repeating the mistakes of the past? The answers may lie not in the future, but in rediscovering the lessons left behind by those who faced similar perils and survived. If ancient civilizations left us warnings, the question isn't whether they were heard, it's whether we've chosen to ignore them. What happens when humanity forgets the lessons of the past? Are we doomed to repeat the cycles of destruction that once wiped civilizations from the face of the earth? History is a paradox. While it often repeats itself, it does so with a cruel twist. The warnings are always there, yet humanity has an uncanny ability to forget them. We live in a world of unprecedented knowledge, and yet the echoes of ancient prophecies have been drowned out by the noise of modernity. As we inch closer to crises that mirror those described by the ancients, the question looms: will we heed their messages, or will we suffer the same fate? Consider the fate of the Maya. For centuries, their civilization thrived, producing some of the most sophisticated astronomical records ever created. But despite their profound understanding of time and cycles, they could not escape collapse. Deforestation, overpopulation, and prolonged drought eroded the foundations of their society, forcing cities to be abandoned. Their monumental temples, once bustling with life, became silent, reminders of a lesson unlearned. Even the mightiest civilizations can fall when they exceed the limits of their environment. The Maya aren't alone in this cautionary tale. The story of Easter Island, or Rapa Nui, is one of the most haunting examples of ecological collapse. The island's inhabitants, famous for constructing the iconic Moai statues, relied heavily on their forests for resources. Over centuries, those forests were depleted, leading to soil erosion, food shortages, and societal decline. The result was a complete collapse of their culture, leaving behind the enigmatic statues as a grim monument to humanity's short-sightedness. These stories aren't ancient history. They're mirrors reflecting our present reality. Today, deforestation continues at an alarming rate, with over 15 billion trees lost annually. The consequences are global: loss of biodiversity, accelerated climate change, and increased vulnerability to natural disasters. The warnings of the Maya and Rapa Nui are clear, yet we continue to tread the same destructive path. The story of Atlantis, whether myth or reality, serves as another potent metaphor. Plato described it as a powerful civilization that fell due to its hubris, consumed by greed and disconnected from the natural order. While Atlantis remains a legend, its moral resonates. Civilizations that prioritize excess over balance are destined to sink beneath the waves, sometimes literally. In our era of rising seas, the metaphor feels eerily prescient. Even modern history is littered with ignored warnings. The Dust Bowl of the 1930s, for example, was a human-made disaster caused by unsustainable farming practices. Farmers, eager to maximize profits, stripped the land of its natural vegetation, leaving it vulnerable to erosion. When drought struck, the result was catastrophic, massive dust storms that displaced hundreds of thousands of people. It was a harsh reminder that humanity cannot bend nature to its will without consequences. And yet, as industrial agriculture continues to deplete soils and water resources worldwide, have we truly learned the lesson? The ancients didn't just warn of ecological collapse. They also understood the fragility of human societies. Consider the fall of Rome, often attributed to a combination of internal corruption, economic instability, and external pressures. While the details differ, parallels to our modern world are striking. Political polarization, economic inequality, and the rise of global tensions mirror the conditions that led to Rome's decline. The lesson is clear: without unity and foresight, even the most powerful societies are vulnerable. And then there's the issue of existential risks, threats that could end humanity altogether. While the ancients framed these risks in the language of gods and prophecy, modern science gives them names: nuclear war, climate change, pandemics, and artificial intelligence. These are just theoretical threats. They are active dangers escalating with each passing year. The ancient warnings about balance and humility feel more urgent than ever. Yet, despite the stakes, humanity often responds to these risks with complacency. Take climate change, for instance. Despite decades of warnings from scientists, global carbon emissions continue to rise. Policies are debated, delayed, or ignored, even as wildfires rage. Glaciers melt and sea levels climb. The evidence is overwhelming, yet the response remains tepid, a chilling echo of the hubris that doomed civilizations before us. But why do we ignore these warnings? Part of the answer lies in the nature of modern society. The pace of life, driven by technology and economic pressures, leaves little room for reflection. Our focus is often on immediate gratification rather than long-term consequences. Unlike the ancients, who thought in terms of millennia, we struggle to look beyond the next election cycle, fiscal quarter, or technological trend. There's also a psychological component. The enormity of global challenges can feel paralyzing, leading to denial or apathy. It's easier to dismiss the idea of rising seas or asteroid impacts as improbable than to confront the effort required to address them. The ancients, for all their myths and rituals, understood something we often forget: preparing for the worst is not pessimism, it's survival. Yet, all is not lost. History is filled with moments when humanity rose to the occasion. The Montreal Protocol of 1987, which phased out ozone-depleting substances, is a testament to our ability to act decisively when faced with an existential threat. Vaccination campaigns have eradicated diseases like smallpox, proving that collective action can achieve the seemingly impossible. These victories remind us that while the warnings of the past are grim, they are also calls to action. The ancients didn't just warn us of destruction. They believed in the possibility of renewal. They saw endings as beginnings, challenges as opportunities to rebuild stronger. As we face our own moment of reckoning, the question isn't whether we have the tools to survive, it's whether we have the wisdom to use them. Will we be the generation that heeds the warnings of the past, or the one that future archaeologists study as a cautionary tale? The choice is ours. History has shown us what happens when we ignore the signs, but it also shows us what's possible when we listen, learn, and act.